Hey guys, it's Izzy, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about how I read so much. I get this question quite often. I read 182 books in 2019 and I've already read 70 books so far this year. We're coming towards the end of March, so I've read a lot of books. It's been a good time. If I keep on track, I should read at least 250 books. Will that stay the same? Who knows? Who knows? But I thought I would talk about some of my tips and my tricks to read more. This isn't going to be how to speed read or anything. It's just going to be how I find it easier to read more. And yeah, I hope this is helpful to people who are looking to consume more books with their time. I want to preface this by saying I do have a severe chronic illness, so I do have a lot of time on my hands. However, I do not have a lot of energy, so I think it kind of balances out to how much I can read. It's pretty similar to everyone else because I can't read for more than an hour maximum, and I know some people can just sit down and read for 3 hours straight, but my brain cannot do that. So my first and number one tip is something that's taken me a little while to do, but that is to read books that excite me and that I'm engaged with. In 2018, 2017, 2016, I never used to DNF books ever. I would always read every book I picked up, and I would pick up pretty much any book that a booktuber said was good, even if my taste didn't necessarily align or I didn't think it sounded that interesting. And I think my reading definitely suffered because I wasn't as excited to pick a book up, and so then I would just find other things to do because I didn't actually want to pick my book up. And it may seem like kind of an obvious thing is to read books you like, but it's something that took me a while to get to, and now if I'm really not feeling a book, I will DNF it unless I need to read it for some specific purpose. But generally, if I'm not feeling it, I DNF it, and I try and read summaries and feel excited by them before I start reading a book. And I also have found a lot of booktubers and book reviewers and all that kind of stuff who have a very similar taste to mine, and I think that's also another key thing, is to find people who have similar reading taste to you, and then when they enjoy a book you can be pretty sure that you're going to enjoy it too. I mean, obviously there's no person that has the exact same reading taste as you, but it's definitely helped me a lot to find people that I'm pretty aligned with in terms of books we like, and that's also definitely helped me to find books that are really going to engage and excite me. And so my biggest tip is read books that you actively want to pick up. That's my biggest tip, is because if you're not enjoying it and you're not engaged, then you're always going to find something else to do. There's always going to be a TV show you could watch or a game you could play or literally anything, because you just don't want to pick the book up. So if you're not enjoying it, put it down, move on to something else that you feel genuinely excited to do. And I would also say don't stick to too rigorous a TBR, because I'm a massive mood reader, so I never plan my reading unless I'm doing a buddy read, but apart from that I just kind of go with what I'm feeling at the moment, so do that. Secondly, audiobooks. Audiobooks save my life because I suffer from really bad migraines and there are quite large periods of time where I just can't read, and so therefore I read audiobooks. But if we're talking about my general reading, when I can read my normal amount, I always have a physical book on the go. I have an audiobook that I listen to during the day, when I'm doing sort of menial tasks or just kind of want to relax and play a game on my phone. And then I also have a audiobook for when I'm trying to fall asleep. I'm quite an insomniac, and if you are too, kind of a good time to get some reading done, you know. I just tend to read like classics or pretty like plain stuff, like not a lot happens, so that if I fall asleep then it doesn't really matter, and I put it on a timer so that I can just easily rewind to where I left off when I fell asleep. So I always have 3 books on the go, and sometimes it's better to have more than one book on the go, because if you aren't particularly feeling one of your books, you can just pick up the other. So again, I would also suggest having multiple books on the go, whether they're audiobooks, ebooks, physical books, however you consume your media. Have multiple so that you have a go-to for what you're feeling. I sometimes have a graphic novel on the go for if I don't want to do some like heavy reading, and that means that if I'm like I want to do some form of reading, I have a lot of options. And so if I'm too tired, I can listen to my audiobook. If my head kind of hurts, I can read a graphic novel instead of having to concentrate on words. Or if I really want to escape, I can immerse myself in a book. And that means that I'm pretty much always reading something and consuming fiction for a large part of my day. My other main reason I read so much is because I do set out time in my day to read. And again, very important, it doesn't have to be exactly the same time every single day, because obviously your routine changes if you have classes at a different time or work at a different time, obviously changes. But I have a session when I wake up, I read for up to an hour, and that gets a large chunk of my reading done for the day, because I'm quite awake because I've been to sleep. I mean, not that sleep's that restful for me, but for most people it is. And I can concentrate a lot more because I'm kind of in bed and I've just got my book with me and I can just focus on that. And then I can get up and start my day having consumed some fiction, having had a good time, and know that I've got a substantial way through a book or whatever. So I think setting out a specific time where it's just you and your book or audiobook, whatever you're reading, and to just like focus on that. If maybe when you come home from school and you don't want to go straight for homework, you can set out half an hour to read then. I also read generally half an hour before bed, which also gets some reading done, but usually I'm a bit more tired, so I'm a bit more slow at that. And yeah, I just have spots in my day where I try and read, even if it's just for like 10 or 20 minutes. Just making that time to read is key, because you're adding that into your daily routine, and it doesn't matter where it comes, if it's in your lunch break, or if it's before you go to sleep, or if it's before you cook your dinner. Wherever is a good time for you, just make sure you block in that time and know that that's when you're going to try and focus on reading, and that you've set out that time for yourself to enjoy your book. Another thing that really forces me to read is buddy reads. They definitely make me feel more motivated to read, because I know I can discuss it and I can engage with the book more, and there's kind of a pressure to read it because you're reading it with someone else, but not too much pressure, and nothing's going to happen if you don't keep up. But it makes me more aware of the book I'm reading. It makes me take in more, because I'm thinking, what can I say to the other person about how I'm enjoying this book? And I think it just really helps me engage with the literature more, because I'm like focused and thinking about talking about it later with someone else, and that just makes me more engaged, more likely to pick the book up, and more excited to, because I'm really engaged with what's happening in the story. You can buddy read with people you've met on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or wherever. If your real life friends read, set up a buddy read with them. Even set up your own little book club if you have a group of friends that read. Do whatever is good for you. There's also a lot of book clubs via YouTube, and they do a live show at the end of the month, so even if you want to do that, and that just kind of helps you pick out a book and makes you excited to read it, so you can discuss it with people at the end and hear other people's opinions, whatever works for you. I just think sometimes making reading a social activity or kind of a group activity. It makes it much more fun to read rather than it always being a solo activity. And yeah, I find that really helps me to pick a book up. And if it's like a kind of long or heavy book, then it makes it slightly easier to get through. When it comes to audiobooks, if you're looking for places to get them that aren't necessarily going to break the bank, like Audible, I did use Audible for like 5 years and it's just super expensive, and so I've kind of found other places to get audiobooks. My places that I'm currently subscribed to are Scribd, which is an audiobook and ebook service, and there are a lot of ebooks, so if you want to read ebooks or want just a bigger library and bigger choices than what you have on your shelves, then that's also a really helpful option. But usually they say it's unlimited, but they usually kind of cap you at about 3 books a month, but it's only about as expensive as Audible, which gives you 1 book a month, and you can listen to audiobooks and read endless ebooks, so you're definitely getting a better deal. And they have a pretty expansive library. I know it's better in like places like America, but it always is, and it's still pretty good in the UK, so that's a place I would definitely recommend. And you can still listen to audiobooks after the kind of like around 3 audiobook limit, but they just kind of shrink the library so there's less options. But it's definitely worth the money in my opinion. Another place that I like to use is BookBeat. It's a relatively newer app, but it's more expensive in the UK. It's I think £12, but it is truly unlimited audiobooks, like just unlimited. You can listen to 30 a month. It's absolutely unlimited, and they have a pretty substantial library, and it's growing like every day. They add new books pretty much every day. They have a bunch of new releases, and so they keep it really relevant, and that means that you don't get bored and you don't kind of reach the end of what you wanted to read and are like, well, I've read all the books I wanted to read now. They have a lot of classics, they have so many young adult books, they have a lot of fantasy, they have historical fiction, they have children's books, middle grade, they have literally everything. And it's my favourite place to get audiobooks from because I don't have to worry about running out of audiobooks to listen to because there are just so many, and I also don't have to worry about it limiting the amount of audiobooks I can listen to. And the final place I use is Libby, which you can access via your library. In the UK, I don't know how it is for the rest of the UK, but personally my library doesn't use Libby, so for the longest time I didn't use Libby, but there's a disability library thing for Libby which I can use because I'm disabled, and that also has a lot of options. And I know most people, especially in America, pretty much every library there uses Libby, and that means you can just use your library card to sign in and you can borrow so many audiobooks and they're all for free. And it's kind of just works like a book from a library, like you can borrow it for 2 weeks and then it just returns automatically, so you don't even have to worry about returning it. So those are my favourite places to get audiobooks from. That's my opinion personally, but audiobooks in general, I listen to them at least on 2 times speed, sometimes 2.5, sometimes even 3 times speed. It depends how fast the narrator is talking, and if it's a reread I usually listen to it faster because I kind of already know what's happening, and that helps me get through audiobooks quicker. But it's not a race, so if you can't listen to them any quicker then that's absolutely fine. But there's even options to listen to it like 1.2 times speed, so you can even just speed it up a tiny bit and just get a little bit more reading done. I had to kind of like work up to being able to listen to audiobooks quicker, but now I find it a lot easier to take them in. And I would also recommend, kind of, if you're listening to an audiobook, if you're not doing a task, at least playing a very simple game on your phone. That definitely helps me focus and actually take in the story. And yeah, if I just am not doing anything, then my mind just kind of floats off and doesn't actually take in the audiobook. So I would also recommend doing that too. That's pretty much all my tips tips for how I read so much. I hope these were helpful to you and you got something out of this video. I know I get asked a lot how I read so much, and I don't know, I just love reading and I truly make time for reading because it brings me so much joy. And obviously there are weeks where I'm just like addicted to a TV show and just won't read as much, and that's fine. Like if there's a whole week where you just do not want to read, then that's fine. Don't force yourself to, because you're not going to enjoy the book and you're not going to get very far because you just won't want to read it. So that's fine. If you don't want to read, don't read, but do try and keep yourself excited by books and intrigued and engaged by stories, and then you'll want to pick books up. So yeah, I read a lot. I make time for reading because it's one of my favourite things to do, and that's probably how I read so much, is I just want to read, so I do. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you are all safe and well, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Also follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Goodreads. I'm quite active in all of those places. I'm writing reviews for every book I read on Goodreads, and I post a Bookstagram photo every day on my Instagram, and I'm always retweeting something on Twitter. Currently it's mainly about Animal Crossing. Sorry. But yeah, and if you liked this video then please do subscribe. I would love to have you here on my channel. But yes, that is everything that I have. That is all my wisdom I have to impart on you. And so I'll see you in my next video. Bye.